Okay, so I am very, very excited to get going. Can you believe that it's time for module one? Now, let me share my screen with you here. And this, for me, is what I believe to be one of the most important modules in this entire course, because why it's so important is that most people are out there trying to understand the how and the what. So they come to me and they say, how do I make money? What do I do? How do I invest overseas? What do I do? And the problem is that understanding your why is so critical. So I've done a lot of research into this. And if you want to consistently go down the how and the what, my belief system is you'll never achieve it. But if you get clear on your why, then your how and your what will follow. And so module one is what we call the power of clarity. And it's understanding your why. And this is so, so critically important, because if you don't understand your why, you're never going to achieve your objectives. So that's what this module is all about. I do want to do a little bit of a recap. So before I get going, how is everyone today? Where are you? The whole idea with this course is that it's live and we're here to engage, etc., etc. So how's everyone feeling? Are you excited? Should we rock and roll? Let us know in the chat room how you're doing. I've pinned myself so that everyone can see me properly. And let's get going in terms of this process. So a couple of recaps. I won't do this every week, but just to kind of get people in the rhythm of how this works. The first thing is, how does it work? Where do you go and find it? So if we go here and we go to school, you can basically see here. So just to remind you, go to the Wealth University, it opens up like this. You literally go to the classroom and you can see here that you've got Wealth Going Global 2025. You open that up and you can see that you've got a welcome here. You've got access to the Q&A. So every Friday we have the Q&A. You've got the kickoff bonus session. So that's a bonus session I did last week with the Enneagram Wealth. You can go watch the recording. Every week the recording will be here. You can see the notes that I put in. I only do this afterwards, by the way. You've got the action items, and then you've got the resources. Okay? Hopefully you'll learn the pattern of how this all works. Now, if you want to go to today, here is today, the power of clarity. Now, I haven't put in the notes yet because I'm going to teach you them. And then once I've taught them, I'll put them in. Plus, I'll put in the recording, et cetera, in terms of that process. So that's how it works. Now, that's not the right one. That's the right one. How this works as well is that, sorry, I meant to show you that, is that what's important here is you can go to the calendar and you can see where all the links are. So you can see Wealth Going Global, Wealth Going Global. Just something I want to point out, because hopefully you can go and save all of these. So if you open it up, you can actually save it to your calendar. I'd recommend you do that so that you don't miss it. Just notice here on the 12th of August, it's 2 hours later. The reason being is our partner is in America and we're just accommodating him with time zones. So we have to do it 2 hours later. So it's always at the same time the whole way through, except for on the 12th of August, which will be module 1, 2, 3. Module 3, it's the currencies, is 2 hours later. So just be aware of that. And then the last thing that's important here is with the PowerPoint is the comments and everything else. So what's important here is if you go back to this and I go back to the community, I always put in, you can see here the comments from last week. Where have they gone now? Okay, let's do it the right way. If I go here and I go to Wealth Strategy, I can always find them. They come up. So there's the recording from Friday. And then if you go through, there's the recording. So the way to find it, you just go to Wealth Strategy and everything related to this course and Friday's recordings will be under Wealth Strategy. And you can see it there. So there's the kickoff session, the recording, etc. Okay, so hopefully that's just making life easy for you in terms of the whole process and everything else. Right, a couple of reminders for tips. Again, I'm not going to go through this every week, but I am going to remind you up front. Commit yourself and to others. Be on time. Pay full attention. No emailing, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter. I know that I'm guilty of this. I do courses all the time. And then I'm doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I believe your life is important. And if your life is important to you, and specifically your wealth is important to you, then I would strongly recommend that you pay proper attention for the full time. Take notes. try and teach someone else. So use the community, put your best things down. Again, if we go here, what I can't overemphasize how valuable this is. If you go down here and you can see, I said, what were your top takeaways? And you can see people have taken the takeaways. So, well done to Chantal and Vilko and Aisha and Tracy, et cetera, et cetera. You can see the people have put their takeaways in. Now, not only incredibly valuable for you because you're learning, but you are also teaching others. So it's a win-win situation. Okay. Play full on, do the exercises, commit to action. And what's interesting when you commit to action, make sure you commit to yourself and to others, be on time, and think about what you commit to before. So often people say, I'll do all of this stuff, and then they do nothing of it. Rather concentrate and really think through whether you're going to do it. And then when you make a commitment, do it. I always joke with people, but in my world, when I say I'll do something, it's done. I just finished a push-up challenge yesterday. I did 3,400 plus minus 3,300, 3,400 push-ups. We had to do a push-up for every kilometer that they rode in the Tour de France. It's amazing. Like 60 people started the challenge, 8 finished it. That's what I'm talking about. Have the mindset that when you say you'll start something, it's done, it's finished. Do what you say, set goals, take action, and have some fun. Okay, that's just some life lessons on how to get results out of this program. I'm not going to be giving you financial advice. I am going to be teaching you everything I know, putting my heart in my sleeve, and literally trying to help you do what it takes to get results in terms of this process. Now, I remind you of the focus: globally diversified passive income and portfolio growth. How do we do it? Well, we diversify across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. And then what we learn at the mastermind level is when you've got a big goal, how do you break it down? Well, you have a big outcome you're trying to achieve. You break it down into monthly targets, and then you've got daily tasks and activities in terms of that process. What are we looking to achieve by the end of this process? We are looking for you to have a wealth plan. So 1-page wealth plan, and we're looking for you to have an investor strategy sheet. And if we put it all onto 1 page, the way it looks is that your wealth plan starts with your why, then it has your how, and then it has your what. And so today is all about your why. If we come back there, today is all about this. This is the entire module, because it always starts with your why. And that's why this module is so important in terms of this process. And if you want to look at it from an investor strategy sheet perspective, this is how it actually works. And we put it all on 1 page. By the way, I will put the investor strategy sheet up today over here. Let me go back to the post. So if I go to Classroom and I go to Wealth Global, I haven't done it, but I will do it. Please just make a note, Kelly. I'll put it here as the resources. So if you don't have it, you can now download it today and you can start to use it, because the intention is to walk away with your physical bits of paper. And at the end, you're going to be able to fill in this entire form. Okay, so your entire strategy will be on 1 page. And people say to me, yeah, but Scott, that's very simple. And I go, yes, simplicity is power. If something is simple and you have clarity, that's when you're going to achieve it in terms of this process. So let's start off with why we are here. Why everything today is about why. And it's summed up in my belief system by a guy called Ray Dalio. Now, Ray Dalio manages $160 billion. And what's really interesting is that Ray has achieved 21% a year for 40 years. So on average, he's achieved 21% a year for 40 years. And this is what he has to say about what you and I as investors should be doing, and the single most important component to financial success. And this is a short clip from a TED Talk. Most of you would have seen it, but I want to remind you because it's basically the essence behind why this entire course exists.
So what the individual investor needs to do is know how to diversify well. So the word that I would know how to diversify well and in a balanced way, to diversify it in asset classes, to diversify it in countries, to diversify it in currencies, to know how to diversify that well so that you have wealth diversification is important. Do not think that cash is a safe investment. Cash is almost always the worst investment. So you have to think about that. You should think a little bit unconventionally. Diversify well, be humble, don't market time, and be conscious of the dangers of cash.
It's all about diversification. And that's why this is what diversification is. I mean, this was built principally from Ray Dalio, because you have to diversify in countries, currencies, assets. Those are the three he says. I built this further and I said you also have to diversify in partners and time. You don't want all your money with one partner. And ultimately, it's about passive income, because passive income is what gives you freedom. So whether you want to invest in America, England, Europe, Australia, South Africa, etc., it's all about diversification. I remind you of the 4 elements to passive income. You need the right partners, you need access to the right deals, you need the right information, and you need diversification. And this is the paid framework, which is the essence of this entire program. So I'm teaching you the why now. Why are we doing this? And the why is because through a paid framework, partners, access, information, and diversification, it's how you build a diversified passive income of $1,000 or more as soon as possible. And ultimately, it's how you move from the 99% over here, which are anxious, uncertain, lack diversification, no passive income, and financially stuck, to this side of the fence, where they're diversified, they've got passive income, they have financial freedom, and they're global citizens. And they are within the top 1%. And that's what this entire journey is about. So I wanted to start with the why of this program. Why are you here? But what's much more important is that I can explain the why of why we built Wealth Going Global. But what's much more important is why are you here and what do you want to achieve? Now, when we wrap it all up with the module 5 in time, we're actually going to bring it all together. And we start today with the why, because your why is your driving force. My belief system, and from all the research I've done, if you're clear on your why, you can bash through mountains, you can bash through walls, you can achieve the impossible if your why is big enough. And so we start with your why, and then we bring it, once we go through all the information, we finish off at the end with the last module, we bring it all together to create your plan and ultimately put your wealth plan together. So we're not doing this today, but I just want to show you the how and the what will come. But today we start with the why. And so where this all came from was a gentleman called Simon Sinek. Now, he's got a great book called Start With Why. He's got a TED Talk called, actually, I don't even know what it's called. But anyway, the point is he's got a TED Talk, and it's all about the golden circle. And he talks about how everyone out there is trying to figure out the how and the what. But the most successful companies, the most successful leaders, and the most successful individuals get clear on their why. Now, let me stop sharing. Do me a favor, type in the chat box. Who has seen Simon Sinek's TED Talk? Do me a favor. Let me know. Yes. No. So what I'm going to do is that today, so there's a couple of people say yes, some people say no, not yet. Okay, great. So whether you've seen it or not, okay, I often leave people homework and I ask them to go watch it, and I know they don't because they're busy. Everyone's busy. So I've planned today to include this in this presentation live. So it's an 18-minute TED Talk, and we're going to watch it live now. And the reason we're going to watch it is that if you've watched, by the way, I've watched it like 50 times because I've done this presentation so many times. And every single time I watch it, it reminds me of what's important to me. So I will be sitting here actively, I'll be listening, I'll be taking notes. And my invitation to you is to listen and to take notes and to keep thinking to yourself, what does this mean to me and my wealth? Because when you get clear on your why, that is the most important thing to helping you get a result. So my invitation to you is we're going to watch this TED Talk for 18 minutes, and then I'm going to take you through the process so that you too can get clear on your why. But I need you to understand why the golden circle is so important. So let me share with you the video here. And the video is called How Leaders Inspire Great Action. And something I learned from Tony Robbins, we're all leaders. Every single one of us is a leader in our own life. Our emotion, our feelings, our thoughts are what drive us in life. And so we always start with our mental. I don't know if you watched the thing I did last night, where the best investors in the world, it's all about mental. And that's why this is so important. So enjoy this. It's a brilliant, but it's the second most TED Talk watched ever.
How do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and you say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers' team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, "That's an amazing discovery, guys. Now we'll improve upon your technology." But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. So he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe. Well, why is it important to attract those who believe what you believe? Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. And if you don't know the law, you definitely know the terminology. The first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all sit at various places at various times on the scale, but what the law of diffusion of innovation tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration, and then the system tips. And I love asking businesses, what's your conversion on new business? And they love to tell you, oh, it's about 10% proudly. Well, you can trip over 10% of the customers. We all have about 10% who just get it. That's how we describe them, right? That's like that gut feeling, oh, they just get it. The problem is, how do you find the ones that just get it before you're doing business with them versus the ones who don't get it? So it's this here, this little gap, that you have to close, as Geoffrey Moore calls it, crossing the chasm. Because you see, the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. And these guys, the innovators and the early adopters, they're comfortable making those gut decisions. They're more comfortable making those intuitive decisions that are driven by what they believe about the world and not just what product is available. These are the people who stood online for 6 hours to buy an iPhone when they first came out, when you could have just walked into the store the next week and bought one off the shelf. These are the people who spent $40,000 on flat screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. And by the way, they didn't do it because the technology was so great. They did it for themselves. It's because they wanted to be first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. In fact, people will do the things that prove what they believe. The reason that person bought the iPhone in the first 6 hours, or stood in line for 6 hours, was because of what they believed about the world and how they wanted everybody to see them. They were first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So let me give you a famous example, a famous failure and a famous success of the law of diffusion of innovation. First, the famous failure. It's a commercial example. As we said before a second ago, the recipe for success is money and the right people and the right marketing conditions, right? You should have success then. Look at TiVo. From the time TiVo came out about 8 or 9 years ago to this current day, they are the single highest quality product on the market. Hands down, there is no dispute. They were extremely well funded. Market conditions were fantastic. I mean, we use TiVo as a verb. I TiVo stuff on my piece of junk Time Warner DVR all the time. But TiVo is a commercial failure. They've never made money. And when they went IPO, their stock was at about $30 or $40 and then plummeted, and it's never traded above 10. In fact, I don't think it's even traded above 6, except for a couple of little spikes. Because you see, when TiVo launched their product, they told us all what they had. They said, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, rewinds live TV, and memorizes your viewing habits without you even asking. And the cynical majority said, we don't believe you. We don't need it. We don't like it. You're scaring us. What if they had said, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, etc., etc. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do simply serves as the proof of what you believe. Now let me give you a successful example of the law of diffusion of innovation. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall in Washington to hear Dr. King speak. They sent out no invitations, and there was no website to check the date. How do you do that? Well, Dr. King wasn't the only man in America who was a great orator. He wasn't the only man in America who suffered in a pre-civil rights America. In fact, some of his ideas were bad. But he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people what needed to change in America. He went around and told people what he believed. I believe, I believe, I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and they made it their own, and they told people. And some of those people created structures to get the word out to even more people. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, on the right time to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed about America that got them to travel on a bus for 8 hours to stand in the sun in Washington in the middle of August. It's what they believed, and it wasn't about black versus white. 25% of the audience was white. Dr. King believed that there are 2 types of laws in this world, those that are made by a higher authority and those that are made by man. And not until all the laws that are made by man are consistent with the laws that are made by the higher authority will we live in a just world. It just so happens that the civil rights movement was the perfect thing to help him bring his cause to life. We followed him not for him, but for ourselves. And by the way, he gave the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech. Listen to politicians now with their comprehensive 12-point plans. They're not inspiring anybody. Because there are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or authority, but those who lead inspire us. Whether they're individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead, not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead, not for them, but for ourselves. And it's those who start with why that have the ability to inspire those around them or find others who inspire them. Thank you very much.
Oh, did you enjoy that? We don't need the advert. Right, let's get back to the PowerPoint. So type in the chat box for me, what did you think about that? Because for me, it's incredible, and it sums up what this entire module is about, and it's why I think it's so important. Just by the way, some resources, there's some great books here. So the one book is Start With Why, and the other book that I recommend is this one, Find Your Why. So it's all about your purpose. So I'm very, very lucky. I get to live my purpose, and doing this, like I'm truly grateful because I get paid to do what I love. But some people don't have their purpose. So these are 2 great resources if you're looking for your purpose. So let's go back to now here. And I'd love you to communicate with me in the chat box and let me know what your thoughts are in terms of the power of that. And now hopefully this diagram makes a lot more sense to you in terms of why this is so important. Now, I want to make this personal for you because the one thing with this course is that I'm going to teach you the theory, but we're always going to bring it back to the practical as to what it means to you in terms of that process. So the first thing is that Alex and I are both certified international coaches, and we went through this coaching course, and it was really interesting because it taught me some lessons. So the first thing, when I was younger, I would understand what someone's problem was, and I'd tell them what to do. So even this course used to only be 5 modules. Now it's 6, because I just teach, tell. But when I did the coaching training, I learned to ask questions so that people come up with the solutions. Because you're going to be 5 times more committed to your solution than you're going to be to my solution. So whether you do one-to-one coaching with me, whether you join the mastermind, whether you come on this course, the whole philosophy is we start with you and why is this important to you? The other thing that's important is that your results, so you're here to get results. This is why this program is being created. It's about results. But what you have to realize is that it's all the stuff below the iceberg, the motivations, the emotions, the habits, the values, the thinking, the assumptions, the bias, the judgments, the defenses, etc., that are going to guide whether you do or don't get the results. And this is a slide that I love. 95% of people in the world live in an away state. They're withdrawn, fearful, inability to make good choices, demotivated. By the way, I would screenshot this if I was you. And only 5% of people in the world live in a towards state. Happy, ability to think clearly, creative, see new opportunities. My belief system is that the way to get into a towards state is there's only 2 ways. One is you get in a like-minded community. So you get in a group of like-minded people that are going in the same direction. So something like Wealth Hackers, this Wealth Going Global, the Mastermind are all places that you're in a like-minded community. And the second, and even more important, is you get clear on your outcomes. So again, 95% of people in the world are caught up in their problems and their drama. It's a bottom-up approach. It's low-quality thinking. This is basically where everyone lives. And the model we learned when we did the coaching was the Lighthouse model. Everything starts off with the outcome. So that's why this module 1 is starting off with the outcome. Why is this important to you? What are you trying to achieve? And like because we can't get into the how and the what, or even the who, if we're not clear on the why. And this is why I'm reinforcing this over and over again, so that you understand how important this is. By the way, when we do the mastermind, there's 9 steps. Step 1 is a one-to-one session with me, where we help you get very clear on your top 3 outcomes, your top 3 priorities, and your top 3 measures. And it's exactly in this module why we start with your why in terms of where you're at. So what we're going to do today is it's your wealth plan, and we're actually going to focus on your why in terms of where we're at. Then we're going to worry about your how, and then we're going to worry about your what. So don't worry about the how and the what today. Today is only about the why. So it's literally this module, the first one, and it's all about the why. Now, I'm going to share with you quickly my why, because I think that the easiest way to learn is by copying other people. When I was at university, I would go into a library, and if I was doing my dissertation, I didn't try to figure it all out myself. I went into the university, I went into the library, I found out who cum laude their dissertations the year before. I got the top 2. I went home, I studied them, and then I wrote my dissertation exactly using the same format. Obviously not the same information. It was completely different dissertation, but I cum laude both my honors degree and my master's degree. Because for me, why not go out and copy? Why reinvent the wheel? And obviously your why is fundamentally important to you, and it's different for and unique for every single person. But let me share with you my why, and it's also, I'm doing this for 2 reasons. One is I'm going to explain it to you so you understand why my reasons are what they are. But more importantly, if we're going on this journey and I'm leading you on this journey, I think it's important that you understand why I'm even doing this. Why am I standing here on a Tuesday at lunchtime? It's very important that you understand that, because trust me, it's not for $497. There's a lot easier ways to make money in the world. So this was my father and I was 13 years old. It was my first construction project. And what was really interesting with my dad is that he was taught what we were all taught to do. Now, most of you have heard the story 100 times, but the point being is that he went to school, he went to university, he worked really hard, he got a great job, he became director of a financial director of a listed company. He invested, he paid his taxes, he did what everyone was told to do. And yet when my dad died at the age of 59, he died broke. And I was like flabbergasted, because that's what I was doing. I was going to school, I was going to university, I was working hard. And I was like, I'm sorry to be crude, but this is bullshit. Like that doesn't work. And when I went and did the research, and JP, you and I were talking earlier with Dr. Hunter Strayer, and Dr. Hunter Strayer actually taught me that 94% of people will be like my dad. So by the way, these stats are out of England, Australia, and America. 94% of people will be like my dad. They'll be dead, broke, or reliant on the government at the age of 65. But the one that astounded me was that 5% of people will be financially independent. And whenever you do this live in a room, I go, who wants to be financially independent? Everyone's like, me, and they all put up their hands. But what they don't know is that the financial industry deems you to be financially independent if you earn 25% less than your last paycheck. So in simple terms, at 65, your first pension payment, if you earned $100 as your last paycheck, and you now earn $75 as your pension payment, then you deem to be financially independent. And I don't know about you, but that's just 25% poorer. And that's why the vast majority of people in the baby boomers and effectively retirees are financially trapped. Which basically means that 99% of people are dead, broke, reliant on the government, or financially trapped. And only 1% of people are actually finishing the race. And when I understood that, and I was in my early 20s, I was like, this game is rigged, it's broken, and I'm not playing the game. Luckily for me, I've always been a bit of a maverick. I was programming when I was 6 years old on a Commodore 64. For those of you old enough, you'll know what Logo was. And I started out. I've always loved the game of Monopoly. And I've basically spent my entire life trying to marry together technology and property in terms of the process. It's what I did my honors degree, and it's what I did my master's degree in London on. And I've also been dismayed by not only my father's experience, but the wealth gap. Because no matter where I go in the world, the wealth gap exists. And in my country, South Africa, it's a hell of a lot worse than most other places on the planet. You know, the top 1% now own, it was 50% when we had the global financial crisis. It's now over 60%. And do me a favor in the chat room, but put in, what do the top 1% have that the 99% don't have? What is it? What's the difference? Why is their wealth growing faster than anyone else's? Are they working harder? Did they go to better schools? Did they go to better universities? Do they have better families? So Volko says financial literacy. Paul says knowledge. JP says paid. Richard says assets. They have freedom, passive income, the why. Interesting, all the different decisions. They're all generally right, but the people that put assets are the ones that get it right. They're investing in better assets. And that's the difference. That's the fundamental difference. The 99% are investing in substandard assets, like houses and the stock market to some extent, and the top 1% are investing in better assets. And so when you look at it, you know, where you live in the world has a dramatic impact on your wealth, whether you're a male or a female. Unfortunately, this disparity is still massive as to your wealth, and also your timing. You know, if you're a millennial, you know, and it's really tough in terms of affordability, etc. So what we set out to do was to do the research. And when I wrote this book, Property Going Global, we did the research. And in simple terms, we worked out that 49% of the world's wealth was held in property. Sorry, that wasn't our research. That research exists. But we worked out that 12.9% of the world's population has access to property. So 49% of the world's wealth is in property, but only 12.9% of the world's population has access. And of that 12.9%, less than 1% actually invests in commercial property. And we said, over 10 years ago, over a decade ago, we said, why can we not use technology, smart investing, to allow everybody to invest like the top 1%? And so that's why we do what we do. We set out and we based everything on Zig Ziglar's principle. You can have anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So, you know, people talk about diversification. I talk a lot about passive income. And my philosophy is I want passive income. And so if I want it and I can help lots of other people get it, then I can have more of it. That's the philosophy. Our vision is to make investing as simple as a swipe of a finger. For those of you who really want to get esoterical, you can have a swipe of a finger on your phone. But actually, if you know how augmented reality is going to work, one day it'll just be a swipe of a finger. and ultimately to get investing down to $1. Now, we've come a hell of a long way. When we started, it was $100,000 per investment. Then it got to 10,000. Then it got to 1,000. It's now $10. And we could make it $1. In fact, our technology can do that easily. We just haven't. We don't really see the point. And the reason being is that our philosophy is $1 or $10 will not change your life. But if I can change your habits, I can change your life. And that's our why. That's why we do what we do. And I wanted to share a story with you. So this is my uncle and aunt, and they're both from Zimbabwe. Now, my aunt lives down on the south coast in Natal, South Africa, and my uncle lives in Brisbane, Australia. And I want to tell you a story because for me, it sums up the essence of why I and the team do what we do. So it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly the year. And my uncle phones me up and he says, listen, we've got a bit of a problem. His brother-in-law lives in East London in South Africa, and he's got medical complications. There was something wrong with his leg and his veins and stuff. And so my brother's an anaesthetist in Cape Town. So he phones him up. He's a specialist there, and he phones him up. And he says, listen, what do you recommend? And my brother said, listen, if he goes to a guy, he didn't have medical insurance, medical aid or anything. He said, if he goes to a government hospital, he'll die. So my uncle's like, well, that's not such a good idea. So he basically decides to fly out from Australia. He comes on a one-way ticket with his wife, and they pick up the brother-in-law, basically the wife's brother, in East London, and they drive down to Cape Town. So the guy couldn't fly, so they had to drive. It's about, I don't actually know how far, 1,500 kilometers or 2,000 kilometers, 1,000 miles for those that don't live here. And anyway, they get to Cape Town. There's a couple of important parts to the story already. My uncle didn't have a boss, so he didn't have to ask for permission. He didn't have a job. He's an investor, so he can invest from anywhere in the world. He came on a one-way ticket because he's got time freedom. Whether he was here for 1 week or 1 month, he didn't have to worry about that. He's not flashy. He doesn't have a big fancy car. He would hire a Toyota Corolla. You wouldn't know anything. He's just a normal person. And yet, when he got to Cape Town, he went to see the specialist that my brother organized, and the doctor said, look, we need to operate, otherwise this is going to end really badly. But then the doctor proceeded to say, but we can't help him. And my uncle's like, why not? And he said, no, because he doesn't have medical aid, and there's a private hospital, and there's no way we can help him. And my uncle was like, don't worry, I'll pay for it. And so it makes me very emotional. The doctor basically says, but you can't. Like, it's a blank check. Like, the guy might go into ICU, might be there for 6 weeks. You've got no idea how much it's going to cost you. And Michael said, don't worry, I'm good for it. And for me, that epitomizes true freedom. Because not only did he have time freedom, not only could he do what he wanted, not only could he spend time with who he wanted, but he could also help others. And 3 days later, the guy was fine. In fact, he left hospital, and it has a fairly happy ending. But for me, that is the epitome of freedom. Some people want helicopters and jets and everything else, and to be honest, I did too when I was younger. But for me, the freedom of choice is the most important thing. Where do I want to live? Where do I want my son to go to school? Who do I want? Who do I want to work for? Who do I want to spend my time with? Where do I go on holiday? Who do I donate my money to? Who do I help and support? And that's why I get out of bed, because it's all about freedom. And I wanted to share that story with you because this is my why. And again, you're all going to get a copy of this if you want to. But I want to have the freedom to live where I want, live how I want, how I earn my income, where my son goes to school, university, where I go on holiday, basically live life unlimited. I want to be able to provide for those who I care about, like my uncle did, without constraint. I want to have time freedom to choose what I want to do with my time and with whom I want to spend my time with. I want to be able to contribute in a meaningful way and have a significant, purposeful impact on the planet. I want to inspire people to achieve the impossible. I want to be a dream provider. I want to be able to leave a legacy and create generational wealth for my family, those who are important to me, and a dream provider in general. And so why this is important is that you now know my why. And the journey that we're going to go on, and I share this in the challenge, is that most people will go through a period of unconscious incompetence. Like maybe you haven't even thought about your why. Maybe you don't even know what your why is. And then you get conscious incompetence, which is today. So now you realize, oh shit, I don't even know what my why is. Or maybe I've got a rough idea of my why, but it's not written down. I don't have clarity. I don't have power. And then you get conscious competence. We actually have to think about it and go and really take some time. That's 5 sentences. Trust me, it doesn't happen like that. It's taken years of work to get to that point. And finally, you get to unconscious competence and ultimately mastery. Now, I would never put myself in the category of a master, but for someone that's done personal development for close on 3 decades and invested a tremendous amount in myself, I would say that I'm a hell of a long way down the line. And don't get me wrong, I know that I've got a hell of a long way to go. But the reason I can share this stuff with you and even get vulnerable with something that's really, really core to me is because I want to share with you how this. And so my invitation to you and the action step for this week, and this is one of the shorter modules, but yet one of the most important, is that I remind you that your silver is compulsory. I would strongly recommend that you do your silver every week so that at the end of the 6 weeks, you have your whole plan put together. And your gold is a bonus. So the action steps for silver is quite simple. What are your 5 whys? And what you're going to do is you're literally going to go here and you're going to go to the link, the module, and you'll see here that you've got your wealth plan certificate. And you can download it. And look how cool this is. This is Scott Picken. So you can either type it. What is today's date? 29th of July. And you can go and type out your why. I want a helicopter, whatever it is. You can print it if you want to, and you can handwrite it. I don't care which one you want to do. But the bottom line is you've got access to your own personal wealth plan. And the invitation is to really work on these 5 whys. And a bit of a heads up, you're not going to get it right the first time. That's why I've given you a whole week. You know, this course, we could do it in 6 days. But that's the problem, is that we need time for this stuff to sink in. We need time for it to synthesize. And we need time for you to think about it. But I fundamentally believe that in the next 7 days, you can really think about what your why is. And my strong recommendation is that you write it down. And if you want, I know a couple of people asked, here's my why. So if you want the demo to use the university model, there's mine. So you can go and read mine. I wouldn't recommend you copy mine, but you can certainly get inspiration from mine. And something that I learned from Tony Robbins many years ago is dream big. You know, there's a book here. Where's it gone now? I've got all my books. Yeah, there we are. This is the book, Awaken the Giant Within. And, you know, this book, you can see all my notes all the way through. It's an amazing book about dreaming and ultimately living the life of well beyond your dreams. And funny enough, the quote that I have on my door is from my dad, where he said, dream big, my son. People become what they dream. So don't ever hold yourself back when you're doing this why. But most importantly, why is it important to you? Because when you get clear on this why, it is a power and a force like you have no idea. And actually, interesting enough, even rereading this to you, even doing this today with you, reinforces this for me to go harder to achieve this. And so that's the demo model for you. And then the gold is some gifts I want to give you. So the one thing book shortened, the one thing purpose, and the one thing financial. So who here has heard of the one thing? Just type in the chat box if you've heard of the one thing. It's by Gary Keller, and it's an excellent resource. Now, I bet you most of you haven't heard of this, which is, let me try and find it now. Oh, thought I had it open. Sorry, 2 seconds. Let me open it for you. You see my screen? Yeah. So I have all the one thing. I bought this basically. So what I'm going to show, I'm not going to share all of them with you. I can, but I don't want to overwhelm you. So what I'm going to share with you, and the reason I'm doing this is one of the biggest problems people have is time management. And most people like even pay for this course and they're like, I don't have time to do all the work and everything else. And that's why I'd strongly recommend is this book. It's only 10 pages long, 9 pages long. And the one thing is about how to get the important stuff in your life done. It's an amazing book. I would highly recommend reading the entire book. But what this is the summary of the book. And you can literally go through, it's 9 pages. It'll take you about an hour to read. And go and read it. Because, you know, if time is an excuse or anything like that, then go and read this. The other thing that I opened for you, I think I've had them all open. Let me just find them for you quickly here. Yep, here we are. Your financial wellness. So some people like back to your why. I'm going to put this all in the school group for you, but you can go through your why when it comes to your finances. So again, a gift I'm giving you to help you be more successful with this, and then down to your purpose. So some people really struggle with their purpose. As I said, I'm very, very privileged. From around 35, I knew I mean, I think I've always known what my purpose was, but by 35, I was extremely clear on it in terms of this process. And so I'm going to give this to you as well. And I do remind you as homework, I don't know why this PowerPoint keeps going to the wrong page, but anyway, it's a bonus. You don't have to do this by next Tuesday. So every week, you've got the silver that is compulsory, and you've got the gold that is the bonus. So I'll give you those as bonuses in terms of that process. Okay. And then the last thing is consider joining us for the Wealth Weekend. So again, the immersion, once you finish this course, there's nothing better than coming and spending 3 days with me, our team, and the family office. Not only will you learn more than it'll blow your mind in terms of what's possible, but you'll also be with like-minded people, and you'll be with the family office. So you truly, it will take you to a whole nother level. And I'm going to keep reminding you of this, because I fundamentally believe this is after doing this course, it'll be one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself in terms of going to the next level. So just a reminder that on Friday, every Friday, I'll be available. And what I do every Friday is I take you through this lesson. So we'll go through it in more detail. Not more detail, there'll be nothing to learn. It'll just be if there's any questions about it, anything I can help with. And then also, I always bring a learning lesson every week. The community discussion group. So I will put up a post, and I'll put in the Wealth Going Global WhatsApp group. If any of you aren't in the Wealth Going Global WhatsApp group, then I'll create one now. Sorry, if you're not, just let Kelly know, and just type in the chat box if you're not. And if you're watching the recording, reach out to Kelly. It's important to be in the WhatsApp group, because we just use it to let you know, we give you links, etc., in terms of where everything is. And then why attend the Wealth Weekend? Immersion with the family office and global investment experts, next level learning and strategy, peer-to-peer mastermind group, global perspective, local advantage, emotional and psychological wealth mastery, tangible outcomes. So it's all, it's not theory, it's practical. Exclusive, invite only. So it's only people that are either part of the mastermind or are doing the Wealth Going Global. And then it's where luxury meets legacy. Again, it's a nice one of the top holiday towns in the country, and it's lots of fun. Okay, so in conclusion for this module, I remind you that the how and the what, which we'll go into next week. So next week, we go into what countries to invest in. And then we're going to go to currencies, and then assets, and then partners, and then time. So the next 5 modules are the essence of this, this formula. But what I realized is that if I don't start with the why, you're not going to achieve the results. And so we start with the why, because that's going to give you the fuel to get through this course, to finish your planning, and most importantly, to turn your plan into results. So we always finish off with a bit of a game at the end. What did you think of the session? Let's have some fun. Think of 1 or 2 words. Get ready to post it in the chat. 3, 2, 1, go. I'm always interested in what people think. in terms of it. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Meaningful, clarity, powerful, moving. Great to remember why. Hit home. Interesting. Brilliant all around. Yes. Transformative. Excellent. Well, thank you for all the things. To those of you who don't use WhatsApp, well, then you must just go straight to the school group. And to those of you that aren't in the WhatsApp group, then make sure that you are put in the WhatsApp group in terms of the process. But look, the essence of where the course always is everything is happening here in school. So this is the course, and this is the de facto. This is where everything happens for you. So I will now finish this up. I'll put all the material in here. I'll also put the bonuses in so that you've got access to them. So everything will be here. But we like to keep life easy. You'll just see in a logical order going through everything here in terms of the process. And that, as they say, ladies and gentlemen, is that in terms of money won't create success. The freedom to make it will. So thank you all for your time. I know that this is a short session, and the real homework now is for you. I've done my work. I know why I do what I do. I know why our company does what we do. I know why the team does it. But most importantly, I know why I get out of bed every morning. And my invitation to you is to get that same clarity around your why, because when you do that, the rest of this journey becomes a lot easier. It really is fuel on the fire. So if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to stay here and answer anything. But otherwise, I'll see you on Friday in the live Q&A in terms of the process. And thank you for all the kind words. I'll read through the comments and everything now and see if there's anything I'm missing. Just by the way, I know this is a short session, but as we get into the meat with countries and currencies, etc., it'll certainly be longer, as I say, about 90 minutes a week, sometimes even a little bit more if there's a lot to share. But this is a short session to set you up for success. I hope you enjoyed it. Get clear on your why, and let's make sure you get those results. Cheers. And come on, there's always a recording. It'll always be put up into school.